Hi everyone and welcome to Push Your Luck videos. Now today I will be reviewing Wildcatters. This is a 2013 release designed by Andre Spiel and Rolf Segel. It is published by RASS Games and Vendetta Games. So this is the first time. These are first-time designers, and I think they came together and created the company RASS Games to publish their very own game, Wildcatters. This is a 3 to 4 player game, and lasts roughly about 2 hours or so. Last time we managed to push out a game at about 1 hour and 45 minutes. I think that's the fastest I ever played the game. It could certainly go faster, but usually it will take about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, including rules explanation to new players. Alright, so this is a all oil petroleum team game where players are trying to they are owners of different companies, which some of them still exist today, and from there they are trying to produce oil, send oil to refineries, and from the refineries they will try to gain area majority as well as a majority in shares and money, and from there they will gain points, and whoever has the most points will win the game. So let's take a look at what's inside the game, how the game plays, and I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, so this is the board for Wildcatters. Let's run through the different areas of the board. First, you get a player aid. So the player aid will tell you the color that you are, as well as the company that you belong to, and the different actions that you can do during a turn. So it's quite intuitive player aid. A lot of the instructions are already available. I'll use it later on to explain what the rules are. Take note that the different companies actually do exist right now. For example, the Anglo-Persian oil company is currently BP, and there's quite a lot. There's the other companies are representing of the oil companies that are existing in our world now today. Right, so that's a player aid, and the board itself is separated. It's a world map essentially. Now there's 4 different areas where you'll be playing from, mostly doing actions upon. Alright, you have North America, you have South America, you have Russia, you have Asia. Right, so these are the 4 main areas where action cards will allow you to play actions upon them. On the top row, you will see the shares of the different companies. These are kind of open knowledge. You'll be able to see them, kind of see the levels of where the different shares are, so you can roughly tell how much of that particular share there is at this moment in time. There's a turn order. Alright, it goes from 1 to 7 for 4 players. Alright, for 3 players it will be 1 to 8 rounds. So at the end of the 7th round, whoever has the most points will win the game. Where do you count the points? The points are all around the board. Alright, and in this score track, which they use oil drops to represent the points for this game. Along the track, along the board as well, you'll see that these are the different areas representing the different areas on the board as well. So why are these here? Later on, when you do scoring, you'll be looking at how many oil barrels you have in each of these areas. Now on the other side, you'll be able to see the different points that you will get for majority scoring. So it's all on the board. Everything's on the board, including the loans. If you happen to take loans, everything is on the board. So it is quite an intuitive board to look at, and the board quality is also quite good. I like the art as well. It has a very 19th century antique type of feel to it, which I really like. Okay, you get cards also will be in play as well. These are the cards that you'll be choosing to do action upon. Unfortunately, the card quality is very thin. It's a very thin, flimsy card quality, so you might want to sleeve. But I think there have been some problems finding sleeves for it because the size is a bit odd. Okay. In addition, each player will also get the good thing about the cards is that they also use money. Cards for money, so that's nice. They don't use paper money. Right, so these are quite nice as well. The shares are also all paper form, and they are slightly better quality than the area cards, but it's still quite a very thin card stock. It's unlikely that you sleeve all your stocks because there's really a lot of sleeves to use, and then they will be slipping and sliding over each other. Now the players themselves will also receive different pieces. For example, they will receive a number of these oil rigs, right? Drilling rigs. They also receive jacks, pumping jacks as well. Right, pumping jacks as well. and you also be receiving. You have all these oil barrels, or wooden cylinders as oil barrels, and you have trains, as well as boats, tankers, and refineries. Now I heard that since this was a Essen 2013 release, if you bought it from Essen last year, they would have given you wooden trains instead of this cardboard trains that you have here. But never to fear, the cardboard chips are very good quality stock. Right, except for the rigs, because the rigs you need to assemble them together, and some of the assembly gives very loose rigs. So when you pack them all together, you might have some rigs that have already been disassembled. Okay. So let's explain how the game goes and the rules of the game. Now at the start, Wildcatters is all about scoring points. You're an oil company. You're trying to produce as much oil as you can, deliver to different refineries around the world, and score a majority at the end of the 5th round, which has a mini scoring, and the end of the game, which is the end of 7th round, or 8 rounds if you're a 3-player. And you score points if you have a majority in stocks of not only your own, but other companies as well, other players' companies. Money, alright, how much money you have also, the majority of it will also give you points. And these different areas, if you have delivered the most oil to them, you also score majority, and then you score points as well. So at the end of 7 rounds, whoever has the most points will win the game. Now at the start, each player will start off with 3 of these drilling rigs, 2 trains, 1 refinery, 1 tank, and 1 tanker. Okay, at the start, all these pieces will be placed on the board, which means that at the start, each player will be given 8 of these lighter colored area cards. Alright, there's lighter colored and darker colored. I haven't really figured out the main differences. It's just that the darker colored cards, there are less of them than the lighter colored ones. And you go through the lighter colored ones first before you reach the darker colored ones. Okay, so each player will first be given 8 of these cards, and in turn order, depending on how you all determine the turn order, right, each player will play 1 of these cards and take 1 of the starting pieces, which is the 3 drilling rigs, the 2 trains, or the 1 refinery, or the 1 ship, and will place that particular piece on the area. So after all the setup is done, then whoever is the first player will start the game, and the game will continue from there. Now take note that the turn order will not change until just at the end of the 6th round, or the round before the last round. So for a 4-player game, at the end of the 6th round, you need to determine the player order again. At the end of the 7th round, for a 3-player game, then you determine the player order again. How do you determine player order? Is depending on the cards that you got and the number of oil drops that you have there. Right, I'll explain that in detail again later. Okay, so the player order will remain. And so what do the players do during their turn? Now, they will the player board is very helpful in this regard. So first you choose an area card. Now at the start of the game, at the start of every turn, there will always be 8 of these cards in front of you, in front of the board, face up, so that players can choose 1 of them. So what are these area cards for? Firstly, if you chose an area card, alright, you'll be able to do action in that area. So for example, if I chose this card, I'll be able to do actions in this particular area of North America. So each of the 4 areas is actually split up into 2. When you choose a card, you only can do an action in that area, but in 1 of the 2 spaces in that area. So for this case, North America, I'll be doing it in the northern or Canada area, Canada region of North America. Next, the next is you receive shares, money, and victory points, which means that the card you've chosen, you look at the below area, this will be what you get. So if it's an oil drop, you get victory points, which you immediately add onto the victory point track. If it is, for example, in this case, you get 2 extra dollars and a point. Some will give you shares. For example, this one will give you 2 yellow shares and $2. And some will be $1, and there's this special ability which I'll explain what it means later on. Alright, so after you've chosen that spot that you're going to perform actions on, then you decide what you want to do. Next player also take $10 during their turn. Every turn, each player will always take $10. That is the minimum that you receive every turn. In this game, the interesting thing about the game is that you will not be able to generate more money unless you chose cards that give you money as a bonus. Right? Otherwise, there's no other way to generate more money. It might be a resource economic type of game, Wildcatters, but surprisingly, you will not be able to generate money if by selling oil or trading oil. What you're actually earning from doing all these things is that you're getting shares, and shares is the other commodity in this game. So it's quite interesting for me because most other games, usually you earn the money to be able to get more shares and so on and so forth. But in this game, money and shares seems to be of an equal footing in terms of being used as a commodity. Okay, next you execute building actions. So this is where most of the AP will happen. Players will now decide what they want to build in that particular area they selected from the card, or in one of a few neutral areas. Now, if you look at the board, there are some areas which are grey. Grey here. Alright. One of the bad things you can see that this and this are quite similar in terms of color. So just need to take note that the grey areas are the EU side, alright, the Africa side, and the Australia. Right. So these are the three main regions of neutral where there are no cards that allow you to play them. So during your turn, when you're doing building, you can build either on the area you've chosen or in one of the neutral areas. So what can you do? You can build 1 to 3. The first 3 oil pumping jacks that you build will be $4 each. In a region, you can only have at most 4. So after you build the 3 pumping jacks in the region already, if you want to build the 4th one, you need to pay $6. Right, so it's kind of expensive. So maximum 4 of yours in the area. So if you see in a particular region, right, there's all these circles. This is where you'll be putting your drilling rigs there. Alright, so this is how you'll be building your drilling rigs there. Okay, next, you can buy a tanker for $2. So tankers, when you buy it, you just point it at the harbor. So this is what we do. We just point the head of it at the harbor. Alright. There's no limit to a number of tankers you can own, except for you're limited by how many you have in your base stock here. The number of tankers that are in each harbor is unlimited as well. And the interesting thing about this is that the tankers do not have a travel limit on the number of steps they can move. Essentially, they can reach anywhere else in the world. So there are many harbors along each of the different regions that are in play, and your tanker can reach any of them. Alright. Next, you can also build trains for $2 each. So trains, there are these little rectangles on the board. Alright, when you build trains, you just put your train there. There's usually, in a particular oil field, there's 2 train slots available for people to place trains. Once these 2 slots are full, you cannot build trains in that slot anymore. In each area, the 2 regions are also connected by 2 train tracks. In some of the neutral areas, there are trains as well for you to do delivery. So trains again are for you to perform delivery from your oil fields to the harbor or to refineries. Okay, that's where the trains come in. Next, you can also build a refinery. You can only build at most 1 a turn, and it costs $12. So refineries are where eventually players will be delivering oil to, and they are a means of getting shares, which is a commodity in this game for yourself. Now, where you place the refinery will also determine where the oil will go into that region. For example, if I put a refinery here, when I eventually do manage to deliver the oil from the refinery when it's full, right, all come to the South Africa slot. So all the oil barrels will be here, and that will be where the area majority will come in. All right, and one thing to note also, if you happen to build if you build the 3rd refinery, so we all start off with 1 refinery on the board. If you build the 3rd refinery, you merely get 6 points. If you build the 4th refinery, you get another 8 points. And if you build all 5 refineries, each player will have a maximum of 5. If you manage to build all 5 refineries, you get another 10 points. So potentially, if you build all 5 refineries, you can get 6 plus 8 plus 10, which is 24 points in the game. So after you're done building, you will now be able to execute your oil actions. So what are oil actions? Oil actions are in a way where a lot of the rigs will be changed into pump jacks where you get oil. So this is where you can get your oil resources. Okay, now in at the start, right, most of the oil fields or regions you can only do E1, which means that you only can do drilling for oil. This will then trigger. This means that you have found oil and now the region can start producing oil. Alright, so if you decide to do this, right, E1, which is drilling for oil, you must first check in the area whether there's a minimum of 4 drilling rigs. Only if there's a minimum of 4 drilling rigs. Does not need to be yours, it can be combined with other players. Right, as long as there's 4, you can do this drilling for oil field, which means you need to pay $8. What that happens, and you will be able to change one and only one of your drilling rigs into a pump jack, and you get oil for it. So you take away your drilling rig, put the pump jack there, and then you put 3 oil barrels on it. Now take note that each pumping jack, right, will only give you 3 oil barrels, and that's the entire game. So once I've managed to deliver all this oil away, that's it. This will be left there. It blocks the space, telling that no one else can build there anymore and doesn't produce any more oil. So you need to manage when you want to convert it to a pump jack to get the oil, and when you can start to deliver in the game. Now, if you've done that, all right, each player who is also in that region, for example, if blue was also in that region. Alright, if blue was also in the region, they can also pay you 3 of their shares. Alright, the very good thing about this player is that they actually color it based on the color that you are at. So for example, for the blue player, you see that it's 3 blue shares. For the green player, you see that it's 3 green shares. So if they also take advantage of the benefit, they can convert at most one of their drilling rigs into a pump jack. They also get the oil, and they give you 3 of their shares. If they cannot give you 3 of the shares, then they cannot do this action. Now, as a benefit for drilling for oil, each player who has a pump jack in that area, all right, will now be able to auction for this Wildcatter. So this is a Wildcatter chit. All right, Wildcatter chits represent independent people who are drilling oil for themselves and not part of some big company. Alright, so you'll be auctioning for this. Beginning with the active player, who usually is the one that triggered the drilling for oil field, they will now bid for this piece. It's Wildcatter token. So the minimum bid is actually 4 of their own shares. You need to pay your own shares, and we keep going on. When you are bidding, you need to show that you have the ability to pay for the bid that you are proposing. Alright, so we keep going. If once you pass, you're out of the auction. You continue until only one person's left. That person pays the number of his own shares, the number he has bidded on. Alright, and then he can get to put 1 of his oil barrels onto that Wildcatter chip, like so. So what is this for? When eventually you deliver and this oil barrel moves away, whoever that own this Wildcatter will take this Wildcatter chip into their area. Okay, it is for point scoring, because at the end of the game, the first Wildcatter chip you have, you get 2 points. The second one, you get 4 points. The third one, you get 6 points. The fourth one, you get 8 points, and the fifth one, you get 10 points. Which means if you manage to collect 5 Wildcatter chips, right, you get 2 plus 4 plus 6 plus 8 plus 10, which means that you get 30 points. Alright, so it's quite lucrative, but you need to think of it as well, because you're paying 4 or more of your own shares for it, so it could jeopardize you, and I'll explain that later why. So after you've done that, players can then decide whether they want to transport oil. Now, if an area already has drilled for oil, that means there's a pump jack there with oil on it already, or as long as there's a pump jack there. Alright, during the active player's turn, you can, instead of drilling for oil, you can exchange a drilling rig. You can exchange any number of drilling rigs for pump jacks. Right, so doesn't matter if it's not yours that was the one that drilled for oil. Let's say blue player comes in now. Blue player decides to do the execute oil action. So blue player can exchange as many drilling rigs as they want for a pump jack by paying $3. Then they don't need to give up shares for anyone. Okay, so that's another way of exchanging your drilling rigs into pump jacks. Okay, next, transporting oil. The active player will, if they want to transport oil, will now pay $4. Alright, if active player does this, it will trigger oil transportation action where every player can participate. as long as they can do so in that particular area, which means that the active player is the only one paying $4, but everyone else will benefit from it. So you get to now transport oil. All players can now take one oil from each token that currently has oil on it and move it to the nearest harbor. So in this case, as long as there's a train there, they'll now move it to the nearest harbor. So if I had the Wildcatter there, right now I can move this one here and move this one here. Okay, as long as there's a train there. If there's no train there, then there's no transport system in place for you to deliver the oil. Now, if blue wants to do that and blue wants to use my train, okay, blue will need to pay one of his share to me if he's using my train. Okay, now, after that, you can also then load up the barrels into the ships, the tankers. If you do that, if you use other people's tankers, you also need to pay them one share. You can also transport the oil into a refinery. Now, if I transport it to my own refinery, there's no real benefit, nor is there any cost involved. If someone else delivers to my refinery, I'll then now need to pay that person 2 shares. So again, if you deliver oil to a refinery, so this means that if someone delivers oil to the green refinery, I will need to pay 2 of my shares to that person. Okay, so again, during transport, if you are using other people's train, you need to pay them 1 of your share. If you're using other people's tanker, you're paying 1 of your share. If they deliver oil to your refinery, you need to pay them 2 shares. Right. Now, during all this time when you're paying shares, if you cannot pay shares, you need to take loan. And loan is not very harmful in the game, but it is kind of a limiting factor, especially if you cannot pay for it at the end of the game. So loan, what happens is you put one of your oil barrels there and you take 10 shares of loan, 10 of own shares as loan. The loan part is if at the end of round 3 you can pay off your loan by paying 15 shares. So for each loan that you have, which is 10 shares each, at the end of round 3 you can pay 15 shares. At around round 5 you can pay 20 shares. At the end of round 7 you must pay 25 shares. For each share that you cannot pay off, alright, you lose 1 point each, which is quite dangerous. So at the end of round 5 as well, there's a mini scoring. If you cannot pay off your loan, then you cannot score majority for your own shares. Points for your own shares. Alright. So transportation. Now the thing about transportation, there are some discussion on the forum that you can see. Transportation is essentially when you transport the oil, it must always end up in some refinery. Right? Only if all refineries are not full and you cannot accept any more oil, then you can move it back and leave it at the harbor. Okay, you must always try to transport it to a refinery if you can. The one thing about using boats, right? If it's your own boat, you will control where the boat will go. If other people are using your boat and you're not there, then they can control your boat. In a way, they are kind of hiring a boat and they'll move the tanker wherever they go. Whatever refinery it ends up at, every oil barrel on it will be delivered to that oil refinery. Unless there's no more space left. Then whoever is remaining on the boat can decide where the boat goes and will deliver that oil to whichever refinery that he wants to. Okay? Now, after all that is done, okay, each player can now move unused tankers. So any tankers that were not part of this transport, that were not used during this transport phase, will now be able to move the tankers anywhere they want. So you can move to any of the harbor that you want. You are doing this to try to plan for the future. So you're trying to see what the next player may do, and you maybe want to put your ship there so that you can either benefit it yourself or provide an option for other players so they can transport their oil to you and you gain one of their shares. Okay, next, empty full refineries. Now, refineries have a maximum space of 5 slots. Right, there's 5 slots, yeah? 5 slots per refinery. So once it's full, alright, you will now deliver them to a particular area. This is where you get rewards for delivering the oil to that particular area. So for example, for my refinery that's in here, alright, all the oil will deliver to this particular region here, this South America region here. Now, if you have delivered other people's if you do other people's oil barrels, you'll get 4 shares of any combination or any combination that you want. So you can get 4 of your own, you can get 1 of each, or 2 of this color, 2 of that color. So it's up to you. If you deliver your own barrel to that area, right, you get no shares. That means you take, if I was like that and I deliver it to here, I'll get no shares. If you decide to keep your own barrel instead, that means return it to your supply, you will still be able to get the 4 shares. Alright, so maximum number of shares you can get for every full refinery is 20, which is quite a lot, because you can top up your own shares. You can ensure that you do not fall into the trap where people start delivering to a refinery to sabotage you, and you need to take loans, and you can also start to get other people's shares so that you can try to get a majority in their shares when you do the scoring. Alright, after that, we refill the area card up to 8. So that there are 8 area cards in front of you. These are the area cards. Okay, you just draw more and put it face up. One thing to note about the area cards is if there's 4 cards of the same particular area, alright, the whole set of 8 cards will be washed, and you draw 8 more new cards. If there's not enough cards to draw, then you shuffle those that have been discarded previously and form a new deck. The cards that you've selected, right, will always be placed in front of you. Why? Because when it comes to end of round 6, right, you will count the number of oil drops that you have of the cards in front of you. Whoever has the most oil drops will now determine his new starting position. So you can choose 1, 2, 3, the first or be the last, up to him. The next one with the most oil drops will choose, and so on and so forth. So in this way, whoever has a lot of oil drops will get to choose the last round, whether they want to be starting player or be the last player. Usually they always choose to be the last player, so you can see what's happening and rush in for the majority later on. Now remember, I mentioned this particular symbol at the start of this rules explanation. Let me try to get it in focus. Okay, so this particular symbol means that at the end of your turn or at the end of the game, right, you can play this card to empty any refinery, including your opponent's refinery, even if it's not full. Empty means that you trigger the delivery, and all the oil barrels, let's say for example I trigger this now, it will just come to here, right? And the owner will also get shares in return. And that's the gist of the rules of the game. Let's see what else did I miss out. Okay, well, one of the other things here is that you can actually trigger a wash of all the 8 area cards by paying 4 points. Now, unlikely that this will happen, most players will not do this. Let's talk about the majorities. At the end of the 5th round, right, you count the majority. So you count majority for each share. So each player will then need to declare how many orange shares they have, and whoever has the most will get 4 points. The second most will get 2 points. If there's a tie, then it's friendly ties. Each of them will get 4 points each, but there's no second place then. Then whoever has the most red shares, whoever has the most green shares, whoever has the most blue shares. Then you will see whoever has the most money. Right, then you count whoever has the most money, and then you also see the area majority. So that's the first time you experience the area majority scoring. So you go through each of the areas. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you see how much majorities you can, who has the majorities and get points. One thing to note is that if you have 0, let's say you have 0 stocks, right, you do not count for majority or minority. And if you have a loan at the end of round 5, then you cannot score majority for your own shares. Then after, when you come to round 7, alright, the scoring is much more higher. The points are much more higher. So for shares, instead of 4, now the first place will get 8 points. Second place will get 4 points, and the third place will get 2 points. For money, it's the same, 8, 4, 2. Alright, instead of 4 and 2. For area majority, it's even more. For first place is 10, second place 5, and third place is 3. And yeah, I think that is the gist of the games. That's the rules of the game. Now, some of the things on the board, alright, for example, at the end of round 5, they could give it a different shading or different coloring so that we know that there's a scoring there. And then for the score track is generally quite okay. The colors, some of the color choices they use is not what I would recommend. For example, I already mentioned that these 2 gray areas are very similar, so people can get mistaken. Under the wrong light especially, people can get mistaken. The areas here, I'm not sure how they group it. For example, like South America, all the barrels will come here. Russia, from here will all the way come to here. EU will come to here. North America will come to here. Africa will come to here. Asia come to here, and Australia come to here. So this part is kind of a bit odd, right? The shares as well. If you look at the cards they chose, I mean, it has a very nice shading and so on and so forth. But I'm not sure why they. For example, if you look at this, this means that you get 3 yellow shares. Let me try to focus. Get 3 yellow shares. Alright. The yellow shares and the yellow on the board and the actual yellow color of the pieces don't really match. I mean, they look more orange than yellow. So some players can get a bit confused by this as well. And yeah, I think that's it. That's the rules of the game. Let's go to our final thoughts. So that's the rules explanation for Wildcatters. Now, in case I got some of the rules wrong, because I've played several games and I realized that there's quite a lot of nitty-gritty things that I may have gotten wrong in my first rules read-through. So, for example, for shares, if you took a loan and you did not pay back during the end of round 5, majority scoring, you will then not be able to score majority for your own shares. So previously we played such that you will not be able to do majority scoring for any of the majorities, like the money, the shares, and the area majority. So that was wrong. You only be penalized for your own shares majority. Alright, so it's not as unforgiving as we thought it was. However, at the end of the game, you still need to pay off all your loans, or else every loan that you cannot, every share that you cannot pay off from your loan, you will be penalized by 1 point. When you're doing shipping, transport of oil, you can transport the oil to a refinery on the same region, onto a tanker on the same region, or onto another refinery if you can go to that refinery via the rail network, or another tanker, maybe in a different port, but it only is connected by the rail network. And yeah, I think that's more or less the rules that I may have gotten wrong. So what do I think of the game? The game is unforgiving. At the beginning, right at the very beginning, when you do setup, you're putting your tokens down already. That can sometimes screw up with what you're doing, right, or what you're planning to do. So right at the beginning, this game kind of rewards people who have played it before, because then you know what you're doing and you know where to put your pieces strategically. But even then, because the card draws later on the area cards that you can choose from, that even though there are 8 of them, sometimes the card that you want or don't want to activate, where you have previously placed your pieces at the setup, may not be there. So you can be a little screwed there. So it's your job to try to diversify where your different pieces are on the board, and or be with other people as well, because just a bit like Terra Mystica, if you're away all by yourself, alright, you'll not be able to gain the benefit of like magic bonus if other players build the building next to you. So in Wildcatters as well, you need to be able to work with other people to build up the oil field in a particular region and start delivering oil as well. The rules could have been a bit better. Right now it looks a bit like it's translated, direct translation, and there's some details that are not specified in the rulebook. So it's more like an open-ended thing, like okay, you can do this, but it does not specify that you cannot do this. So a lot of rules are kind of open to interpretation. Open to your own understanding, right? But the designers have been very helpful. If you go on the BGG forum, they have been very vocal, very responsive, very vocal. So if you have any questions and so on and so forth, people will be there to answer you. There's also a few fans of Wildcatters who are also very feverishly checking the forums, and if you have any questions, they'll be able to answer you. There's a small 1-page FAQ that has already been released, just to cover some of the vague points that vague questions that you may have come up with. So that's very helpful. But the rulebook could have been formatted and written nicely, because for example, sometimes you are looking for end of turn before the end of the last round, there's a you need to see who has the most oil drops, and then that person will be able to determine which position goes first. That is somewhere right in the front, right? In a way, you kind of expect it near the end of round upkeep phase paragraph area, right? But that's right in front, and so you may sometimes need to flip to and fro to see all the rules. Right? Hopefully, there's someone out there will be able to come up with a reformatted rules so it'll be easier for newcomers to understand the game. There's a lot of subtlety in the game. Right? As you play more, you realize that everything is not as straightforward as it seems to be. For example, in my first game, I saw people rush for the refineries, right? And then they score a lot of points, because refineries you could score, I think, 6, 8, 12, 20 points if you build all 5 refineries. And so when that someone built refinery, he thought that, hey, we could go there and screw that opponent. We just need to go there and start delivering oil, and then that person may not have enough shares to pay off. Indeed, that was when my first game. I also thought that was dangerous, so I did not build a lot of refineries. But it seemed to work for the opponent. So when I tried it in my next 2 games, no one went to my refineries. No one patronized my refineries. So I did not get any shares. I could not deliver anything. And so I was kind of screwed. So I'm wondering why that happens. It could be because I need to patronize my own refinery to attract other people to come. So that was another layer of the game that I did not realize. It's not so straightforward as I thought it was. Most of the players that I've played with, whenever we play the game, we learn something new, or we realize something different. Stock, for example, keeping count on stocks that other players have. You could try to do that, but it could get very messy in your hand. Of course, we don't encourage that you have pen and paper to be able to keep track, because we feel would be kind of a bit cheating. So you can manage it using the stocks that you have in your hand. But after a while, it might be too much information for you. But stock management and stock counting is a very important tool to have in this game, because that will allow you to win majorities in the stocks. As I mentioned, the game itself is it has a lot of contradictions here and there. For example, some of the components are very nice. Some of the components, like the cards, are mediocre at best, and they get banned quite easily. I think after several plays, or if people are nervous or excited when they hold on to the cards, they might ban the cards. So if you can find the sleeves for it, then that would be what I suggest. I can't really find the sleeves for it. I'm not very sure why the sizes are a bit different. I have several sleeves. When I try to sleeve them, they all seem quite different, so I'm not sure there. But I've seen them getting sleeved before, so I bet there are sleeves out there, so you just need to find it. What else is there? When you play the tanker movement, so one of the rules I may have forgotten is that the tanker movement, end of your turn, only you are allowed to move the tankers, alright, your own tankers, right? So no other players can move. We play a game where everyone can move the tankers around, so only you are allowed to do that. One of the things that we also realized is the tankers are actually quite useful. Initially, we thought that tankers are just extra, because we could always just deliver to a refinery near us or the next region. But tankers gives you that extra option of moving to anywhere. Since tankers have no movement space limit, you can move to anywhere you want. So having tankers can be quite useful as well. So it's just something that we discovered in the last game that we played. So I guess what I'm trying to say is Wildcatters is a medium to heavyweight, bordering on a heavyweight type of Euro style game. You may think there's a lot of luck involved in the card draw, but your purpose is to try to mitigate that by diversifying everywhere, so that if whatever region it hits, you have something there, and you'll be able to benefit from the action there. You need to manage money very well. Money is a very expensive commodity, more so than the shares in the game. So it is a interesting part about the game where money is actually much more valuable than the other resource, which is shares in the game. So it plays 3 to 4, about 2 hours. If you have, and the rules explanation is about maybe 2.5 hours or so. But if you have the chance, this is a limited edition game. There's only 900 copies produced. The designers started their own company and produced this game themselves, and were released in Essen last year, and so there's only 900 copies. So if you want, you can actually order directly from their online store, or there are some online retailers that are actually carrying the game right now. But be aware that it may not be very cheap because it's shipping from the Europe side. But if you're staying in Europe, then that's fine. But for us, in the Asia side, it was kind of expensive to get it over here to play. And so hopefully more people will watch this video and understand what Wildcatters is about, and go out and see whether you can try a copy, and do buy a copy if you like the game, because it is quite a surprise for me from 2013. Alright, so that's Wildcatters. Thank you for watching.